Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Talking Heartland show. And this is a show where we're looking at back episodes of the Heartland TV show. And we are starting season 13. And this is so fun. It's season 13, episodes 1, 2, and 3. And we have special guest. Michelle is gone this week. She is out at the Outlander Expo in Scotland. It looked pretty epic. So she's having the time of her life. And we'll be excited to have her back next week. But in her stead, we have Jess is here.
Hi, everybody.
Yes. And our friend Micah is back. Thanks, Micah, for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Rachel.
Yes. So Jess, since your first time being on Talking Heartland, why don't you introduce yourself as far as tell people what your connection is to the show and also to horses, your expertise.
Yeah, so I actually have like a very long history, I guess, with the show and like the content. So I grew up reading the Heartland books.
Wow.
I started reading them, I think, in 5th grade. And it was like my favorite series. I read all of them. I was like obsessed with it. I even like wrote the author. Like I was like a total like little fangirl. And reading the books actually, I think, really sparked my love of horses. And so I took riding lessons a little bit at that age, but not for very long. But my love of horses still stayed even after that. And so when I was adult, I kind of was like, okay, well, I really want to recommit back to this passion. And so I've been, getting back to riding. And it's been really, really fun. And then I was so excited when I knew they were going to start the show back in however long ago that was. It was so nostalgic, like right from like the opening like credits or whatever. Mm-hmm. It was so nostalgic. And I thought they did a really good job with like casting and kind of how they set the show up, like compared to the books. So I was very pleased back then.
And when you compete on the horse, do you do the jumping? What do you do? What do you compete in?
So I ride English, so it's closer to what Georgie does with Phoenix. I do jumping, not as high as she does. I'm not quite that brave yet. I stay usually around 2 feet. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I do mostly jumping and like basic dressage.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a horse that is like your horse that you ride?
I don't have one of my own, unfortunately, because they're so expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's 3 that I ride at the barn, and they're all very different personalities. Mm-hmm. One's very much like a little puppy dog that just loves you no matter who you are. And then one I started riding recently, he's a thoroughbred who had been left to sit for a long time, so he's got more of an opinion about things, and he's definitely more of a challenge. But mm-hmm. I like that challenge. It's been really good for me.
That's cool. That's interesting. And Micah, have you ever gone horseback riding? Have you ever done anything like that?
Unfortunately not, but ever since I started watching Heartland, it's something I've wanted to do, but mm-hmm. It's kind of hard in Indiana to find those connections, honestly.
Yeah. So. I've gone horseback riding twice in my life. And the main time was when we went to this ranch called the Rock and R Ranch for this family reunion, and it was not for me. I don't know, I didn't love this whole place and this whole activity, but I was trying to be a good sport, and they advertised they were having an introductory ride, and I thought it was just going to be like around the track, like or something like that. No, it was like fairly intense, I thought, for a first ride. You had to go down this like ravine, and we were going through like a creek at a certain point. I was like, it was pretty intense, but I got through it, and the only reason I got through it was because my little brother, who's 16 years younger than me, was on the horse in front of me, and I was like, I can't be more of a wuss than my little brother. So I made it through.
There you go. That's the motivation.
Yeah. Because I was when I was like 23, 24. And so he was like significant. He was like little, at the time. Anyway, I was just like, Oh, it was an experience. I ended up for most of that vacation, I watched The Nanny with my sister in our room. So that was fun. But the first episode we're talking about is Snakes and Ladders. And I actually don't really know why it's called Snakes and Ladders. Was there a snake even in the episode? But
I assume Kirk is supposed to be
I guess
the quote unquote snake. But I don't know exactly where the
ladder.
Maybe like they're supposed to be like climbing like a difficult ladder, if you get what I'm saying. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Something, I don't know. But anyway, it's a disgruntled horse owner causes problems for Ty and Amy's business. Jack offers to teach Luke to ride a horse, and Lisa is regretting the decision to let Tim stay at Heartland. So, Micah, overall, what do you think of this episode?
It was a great premiere. I feel like you guys have talked a lot about this, how a lot of storylines kind of made the episode seem all over the place, but not in this one. I just feel like less storylines kind of like grounded the episode better. And it definitely felt like classic Heartland. I love seeing Luke on the ranch. It's definitely a highlight. And then Amy and Ty's business is something really cool to like finally see happening. So yeah, it was a good episode.
Yeah, I agree. I think this was a really strong premiere. I had just loved everything with Luke. Ever since he first got introduced, I just have loved him. I loved the performance by the child actor. I loved the bond between Ty and Luke a lot. And I also loved the scenes in this episode between Jack and Luke. They do such a good job with child casting in this show. I think it's really good. And I don't know, I just love that whole plot line. I think it's great. What do you think, Jess?
Yeah, I agree. I really like this episode, and Luke is probably one of my favorite parts because I think like every time, he has like a storyline there's kind of this nice conversation that happens to someone, whether it's with Ty or with Jack, and I feel like you always leave it feeling you kind of like learn something or something really touches you. So I really am enjoying that in these episodes, having Luke's storylines.
Yeah. Well, and Tim is legitimately the worst in this episode. We talk a lot, Jess, on this show about Tim being the worst, but he's terrible in this episode. Like, honestly, if they've just allowed him back in the house, what are you doing? Drinking the milk out of the carton?
Oh my gosh.
Like, he's a grown-up. He should know that, especially someone like Lisa is not going to like that. Come on. I don't know. He's just, and then he's all huffing. He's like, I'm moving out. And you're just like, oh, Tim.
He is the worst. But honestly, even though he is the worst, he never really quite annoys me. I just find him very humorous.
Just like, wow. I mean, and Chris Potter does a good job with the performance. Definitely, don't get me wrong. But he's complaining about Lisa's lasagna and then drinking the milk out of the carton, drinking too much of their coffee. It's just like, what are you, 13? I mean, come on.
Yeah. Still living the bachelor life.
Yeah. Just like, go into your RV. You're better off there. I mean, oh. And then we also have this guy, Kirk, as we talked about, that is a total bully, and he has a horse that's a total bully with Sarge. And I don't know about you, Jess, but I'm always just absolutely amazed at what they're able to get these horses to do. I mean, unbelievable. And this episode was really just amazing what they're able to get Sarge to do, to be able to behave like that. But then also when they've got the makeup work that they did on the horses, to those cysts and things, and
yeah,
for Phoenix, and the frothing of the mouth, and that's rough.
Yeah, they definitely, I feel like I really want to go like behind the scenes and see how they work with these horses, because I feel like that's like probably the biggest challenge of like, especially with horse shows, is like, you're working with a horse. It's not an actor, and you have to you're trying to present like a horse that doesn't have these problems. And now you're trying to put them in a movie saying like, oh, has this problem or whatever. It's like, that's got to be like such a challenge. I'm very curious to see like their process for that.
Yeah. So basically they bring Serge on, and then they find out that Phoenix they want to quarantine him at the airport because of he's been contaminated, exposed to this vesicular stomatis. But they convince them to allow them to bring him home, but then Sarge becomes infected. It's a big mess. Micah, what do you think about all of this?
Well, I don't understand how they would be allowed to quarantine Phoenix at Heartland, just because there's so many risks of like him coming into contact with other horses. At the airport, they'll probably have him like separate from everything, you know? So I don't understand how like they were allowed to do that. I mean, I get it for the show, but that didn't make any sense to me.
Right.
But yeah. Yeah, definitely it's like a huge mess. I feel like there was a quarantine storyline like really early on, like in the early seasons. So it kind of felt like a repeat to that. Um, but yeah, I thought it was interesting, I guess, overall.
Yeah, I feel like there was something with Spartan early on, way early on.
Hmm.
That'd be quarantine. Yeah, I think you're right. I forgot about that. But yeah, I mean, do you think, Jess, does Kirk have a point here to be kind of ticked off?
I think so. I mean, I don't deal with like equine illnesses very often, but if I had been them and like knowing the number of horses they have at their ranch and like that they're all client horses, I do feel like it was a really big risk to bring a horse that could be potentially carrying something back to the ranch. I don't feel like many actual owners would have made that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Kirk had a point, and like when they were maintaining, they didn't do anything wrong. I'm like, well, you kind of did because you didn't have to bring him home.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I could see why he's so upset. I think that he maybe takes it a step too far when he's out like trolling them, and also, I mean, he was trolling them, which got them to accept his horse to begin with.
Yeah, that's not right.
And he had unrealistic expectations to begin with. To make a horse, depending on what the horse's issues were, giving them only a week, that's not enough time to do anything with a horse. I mean, that's barely enough time for the horse to get acclimated to its new surroundings.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, she's a miracle worker, but
something's
even out of her hands. So I absolutely loved all the scenes between Jack and Luke. Jack says he can teach anyone how to ride. If you're going to be a part of this family, you need to know how to ride. And it was just so cute. I mean, time that Luke has been with Boots, that has been just absolutely precious. But then the added of Luke with Boots, learning to ride Boots with Jack, it was great. I loved it. And Jack says, when you can't control something, you lose it. You don't feel like you can control Boots. Riding, like many things in life, has to do with trust.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I loved that.
It was so cute. And Luke says, he's okay with me, isn't he? He wants me to like riding him. I mean, what is that like when you're first trying to teach somebody to ride? How does that usually go? Do you think, Jess?
I mean, I think it kind of depends on the child or the person. But it's a big learning curve. You're working with an animal that doesn't speak your language. And so, especially for younger children, they have to learn the amount of like pressure to use, like not too much, not too little, and like kind of finding that balance of how to communicate with this 1,200-pound animal. It takes a lot of time. So I do feel like that was my one critique. And like at the end, it was super cute, but I'm like a little too much probably for a child who's never ridden to be like out cantering by himself.
Right.
So if you're a young child watching this show, that's not realistic expectation of where you're going to be.
Unless you're going to the Rock and Our Ranch where they take you like down ravines your first time.
Yeah, but I mean, I think, for most kids, it's definitely a process. But I mean, to be able to walk around and trot and stuff. I mean, it's not that bad for them, I don't think.
It was really cute. I mean, and he's trying to teach him like the difference between like how much pressure to put on the reins and on your feet and all that stuff. I'm sure takes a lot of practice.
Mm-hmm.
So you have Georgie with Phoenix a lot. She has to wear the mask so she doesn't get sick. But she asks if she can stay in the loft to be near Phoenix. And it was just interesting, with all the controversy, mask now, to watch this. And, like, it just, I don't know. I thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But it was tough to watch Phoenix with those big.
Just before COVID happened, so
yeah.
So that they were wearing masks.
Yeah. So I just thought that was kind of ironic. But yeah, Phoenix with those big blisters, that was tough.
Mm-hmm.
Tough to watch. But they're playing like musical chairs with the rooms going on. This, and it does kind of remind me of on the Cosby Show. They always wanted to have a child character in the house, right? And so they would come up, once Rudy had gotten too old, they would come up with all of these solutions for keeping one of the older kids in the house, Sandra or Denise. And it would always be these really highfalutin, ridiculous reasons why, these grown women with children and families needed to live at home. And I feel like that's kind of what they're doing here on Heartland, is they need reasons to keep both Lou and Amy in the house or house adjacent as long as possible, because they want to have the kids there with Jack to interact. So that's, I think, why we're having all this musical chairs with housing.
Yeah.
But basically they decide that they're going to have Georgie be in Amy and Ty's loft. They're going to have Georgie in the loft, Tim in the RV, Amy and Ty and Luke and Lindy, and then Lou and Katie, and Jack and Lisa, all in the main house.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's going to be busy. And I mean, at the beginning, we find out that Tim has been bothering the architect Lee and their house, and on Amy and Ty's house. And he says at the end, "I'm going to be here. I'll be on site." Poor Lee's like, "Oh no."
Poor Lee. We hardly know him, and we already feel bad for him.
Yeah. Because I learned when I had my house built, I have a townhouse, and it was a build, and a friend told me that to plan on moving into the house 3 months after they install the kitchen cabinets, and it was almost to the day, and I should have believed her from the beginning, because they kept telling me, like, I had everything packed in December, ready to go, ready to move, because that's what they said, and I didn't end up moving until February 1st.
Oh wow.
Yeah. They were like, "Oh, the move-in will be the first week of December," and my friend told me, she's like, "Have they installed the cabinets yet?" No, they have not. God. Okay. Anyway, so that's a tip. But yeah, I mean, this makes sense, especially Georgie. Like, she's basically an independent woman at this point. Like, she's had her own space in the attic, but she needs even more. And so that's where Luke's going to be, I guess, in the attic, or sleeping right now. But anyway, it was interesting, all of that. Tim lets go of his bachelor pad.
What a sweetheart.
Yeah. I'm curious, Jess, do you know, so they've had Georgie supposedly be preparing for the Olympics. Do you have any idea of, like, kind of equestrian athletes and what that whole kind of scene is like?
I really don't, just because I've never like truly competed
Mhm.
on any, I know there's like a whole like big thing, like there's rated shows, and then there's, obviously she's doing even more than that because she's been competing overseas. I think she's probably the right age for like
Mhm.
doing some of those like higher ranking shows. I don't know about the Olympics.
Yeah.
I always felt like Olympics was more like adult writers, but I
Yeah.
could be wrong.
Well, I did read that there were compared to other sports, there were older athletes, even some in their 50s and things like that at the Olympics for equestrian.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. So that's this episode. It had some pretty good moments, and it was kind of nice in a way. Yes, they made the wrong decision about Phoenix, but usually Amy is so perfect with everything that she does that it was in a way kind of nice to have an episode where she makes mistakes and has to deal with it and
Right.
figure it out. And so I kind of liked that for her character. And so, Micah, what would you give this episode 1 to 10?
Pretty strong episode. I think I'm gonna give it an 8.5.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we forgot to talk about. Oh wait, no, is that next? That's next. Never mind. Oh no, wait, it is. So we get introduced to June Bartlett in this episode, because Jack takes Luke up to the family cemetery. We learn about the name June Bartlett, and we're going to get that more coming up. But that's Jack's sister. So, Jess, what do you think 1 to 10 of this episode?
I also gave it an 8. I thought it was a really strong story.
Yeah, I agree. We'd like to take a second from this episode of the podcast to celebrate our sponsor of this episode, and that is the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast?
Do you want an inside scoop into what happens on the podcast?
Do you want early access to episodes and loads of cool perks?
Now is the time to become a patron of Hallmarkies podcast.
By becoming a patron, you get to access our patron Facebook group.
You can request episodes or even be a guest on the podcast.
And most importantly, any patron can join our monthly movie watch-alongs with stars like Paul Campbell, Natalie Hall, and more.
It's as low as $2 a month to join in and become a special part of the Hallmarkies family.
Please consider, and we will love you forever.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
All right. So the next episode is called Wild One. And this is where Amy is trying to gentle a wild horse, but he may not be possible. So in this episode, Amy is trying to gentle a wild horse, but his temperament may prove impossible to work with. Meanwhile, Georgie is dragged to University Open House by Peter and ends up face to face with Wyatt after months apart. So Jess, overall, what do you think about this one?
I also thought this was a really strong one. I particularly enjoyed like some of the university scenes because I love Adam and I just think he's a really fun comic relief character. And we had more good scenes with Luke as well. And yeah, I think that's my favorite parts.
Yeah. What do you think, Micah?
Yeah, another strong one. Had a lot of classic Heartland stuff with the horses. I really enjoyed that. University stuff was good too. I'm glad that we've kind of moved past the stage of like annoying Adam, and now we can like just like laugh at him, because there was like a time there where he was just kind of being annoying. So yeah, I like him now though.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a fun episode. We get the introduction of Sean Roberts as Sam Langston, I think is the last name. And I am a pretty big Sean Roberts fan. He's in one of my favorite Hallmark movies that it's an old one. He has a bunch, but I love Recipe for Love. That's one of my all-time faves with Daniel Panabaker. If you haven't seen
Yeah.
it, it's
I think
very
he's been in
good.
Up TV that I recognized him from. Because I was like, "Ah, I can't place him. I can't place his face, but I know I've seen it.
Oh yeah. He's done a lot. He's done a lot. I'm not sure which one would have been Up. He's in one with Alexa Panabega that's actually pretty good called Mismatched. That she plays in a wedding planner, and he's like very skeptical on the whole idea of big weddings and planning overspending, and I don't know, so they kind of enemies to lovers. It's cute. It's a cute one. He's a lot of fun, and he basically he's the guy that bought Big River Ranch from the person that Tim sold it to. And so now he wants one of these horses to be gentled by Amy. He's kind of pushing her on that. And she just really, really tries. The horse's name is Kaz. And Amy says she feels like she's breaking Kaz's spirit. And I agree with you guys about Adam. I think that Adam is best not as Georgie's boyfriend, as the friend role, as sort of the snarky sidekick. I think I'm enjoying him a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
He's really fun. And we still have Kirk posting, trolling about Amy and Ty, and that's frustrating. I feel like it wouldn't be as impactful as they make it seem like here. Like one, I feel like most people know that, oh, there's always one kind of troll like that. I feel like that wouldn't counteract like literally years of glowing positivity
Yeah.
for these people.
Mhm.
But they seem to make it seem like that. And I mean, you definitely broke your heart when Luke's mom cancels on him again. Oh, so sad.
Yeah.
But the great conversation between Ty and Luke about how moms sometimes break promises.
Mm-hmm.
It
I
was
love
so
that
good.
scene. That was very, very beautifully done.
It was so good. It was so good. I mean, do you remember Jess like going to college visits kind of like this?
Only a few. I don't think I went to that many, but yeah, I vaguely remember it.
I never did because I just wanted to go to one school. There was not any doubt for me. I wanted to go to BYU. It was our church school. So that was the big goal. I applied to one other school, Southern Utah, but it was absolutely a second choice.
Yeah.
I really only had one school I wanted to go to, and thankfully I got in, so it all worked out. Is that something you're looking forward to eventually down the road, Micah?
Yeah, I'm excited to get there.
Yeah.
A few more years. I'm hoping for Ball State, and
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
that's a really
Muncie, right?
yeah, that's in Muncie. That's what I'm hoping for, and then there's a few other ones, but I do want to stay like near where I'm at because I don't want to like move super far away. Like I
Yeah.
want to stay somewhat close, you know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
sure. Yeah, I don't know if you knew that I served my mission for my church in Indiana. So, and I was at Purdue campus for a big part of it, and I was at Bloomington just for a little bit. So I kind of got to spend time on both of those, on IU and at Purdue, and then in Indianapolis, there's PUI, I think.
That's where I went. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
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 Oh,
Oh, I forgot. Both of you are from me. Yeah. Didn't even
really?
think of that.
It's just an Indiana party right now. We're celebrating.
Yeah. I'm an honorary Hoosier.
That's right. We'll adopt you.
Yes. I lived there for almost 2 years. It counts. So yeah. So Georgie sees Wyatt, and I guess that, things didn't really end well. They both say they moved on. But there's obviously something there. I do think they have pretty good chemistry. And I thought the whole scene with them, all three of them climbing the wall, the rock wall, was pretty fun. That made me laugh. because have you ever done one of those rock walls, Jess?
A few times, yeah.
I've only done it once, and it was so much harder than it looks.
I know it's a lot harder than you think it's gonna be.
Yeah. Micah, what do you think of the whole thing with Jack and the Heartland beef ads?
Oh, yeah,
That was funny.
That was very funny. Like, and yeah, Tim was pretty funny too. I found myself laughing at him. So
Yeah.
And I liked how they described Mitch like an actor pretending to be like a beef farmer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they were
Yeah.
doing like Kevin McGarry's shout out kind of at that.
Yeah.
Well, and they act like he had some say in it. Like they took the photos and just used the one. I mean, why wouldn't you want to have Jack as your
Right.
spokesperson? I mean, of course. Although it would probably be tempting to have Kevin McGarry too. And so we also, there's a whole scene where Georgie sees Peter kissing Jen, and he's just kind of like, I don't even know what this relationship is right now, but he says that you should be the one to tell her about your summer plans, and I should be the one to tell her about Jen. And it is surprising that Georgie would want to give up competing just after she's just come back from this huge thing in Europe.
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
I think so I've actually seen this entire season. I think they go into it in the next couple episodes. I feel like, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the reason actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like they do go into it.
Yeah. We also have Amy getting frustrated with Luke and saying to Ty, well, you better talk with him because you have a connection, we don't. And Ty says, you're better at this than you think. But I do think that there is some truth to that there sometimes is just like natural chemistry between family members that's stronger than others. Like that, and you go through, I think, phases too, where you're like, at least in my family, where you're like super tight with maybe one. I mean, I've from family of 6, so I'll go through phases. I mean, I'm never like ostracized from anybody in my family, but like there'll be times when I have like a super close connection, real chemistry with a particular person, and then other times when it's a little bit harder. I don't know. What do you think about that, Micah?
Yeah, I do think there's some truth to that. You're gonna have different chemistry with different people. I like, because we don't see Amy often in this type of role. You know, typically she's out working with the horses. So I'm glad she got some time to kind of like show her like motherly side, you know, just because we don't do that often. So I really did like that. But yeah, I think it was understandable her being a little bit jealous of like how close Ty and Luke are, but she also has to understand that Ty used to like be Luke. Like
Right.
that. Yeah. And
Yeah.
but you know, it's hard no matter what. But I like that for Amy.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's also nice because Amy's usually so perfect and great at everything. That it's nice. And I mean, of course, little Lindy is just the most adorable thing ever. But this is, you know, a little bit harder. And you know, first he fights back with her and says, I don't need your help, so leave me alone. And then he says, I miss my mom. And we find out that he's never had a bedroom all to himself. And so that's when she brings Remy in, which was so cute. It was adorable. And then he says, I'm sorry I got mad at you.
Oh.
And you have cats, right, Jess? You don't
Yeah, I have one cat. Yeah.
One cat. Okay. Yeah. So, but this was a peak Remy moment for the show, I think. It's really good. So, and then Peter says to Georgie, thank you for being so mature about this. And Georgie says, less is probably more in this situation. Which I think that Peter had, and Jen have nice chemistry. What do you think, Jess?
I think so. I mean, just from the brief time we saw them, I agree.
Yeah.
They do. They seem to work well together.
Yeah. We also find out that evidently the focus group says Tim does not have a trustworthy face, and I laughed at that. And Jack is so nice in this scene. Jack says, over the years, you proved otherwise to the people who actually matter. He says, I'm not enjoying it at all. It's really good. But we find out that, so Ty sells his motorcycle in order to have the money to help with the house, build the house, and so then Georgie's going to go on a road trip with Wyatt and Adam, and then this cute little scene at the end with Amy camping out with Ty. That was really, really sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what would you give Jess this episode 1 to 10?
I gave this one a 7.5. So still very strong. I like the first one a little bit more, which is why I just put it just under.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. What do you think, Micah?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. 7.5. Yeah, not as strong as the premiere, but there were still some good moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So our next episode is called Rearview Mirror, and this is Jack is faced with painful memories from his past, and the family is at a loss on how to help him. So this is where we find out more about Jack's sister, June. And whenever they can tie back into sort of this family emotion, that I think it really, really works well for the show. I thought this episode was very strong. And I think that it helps by the fact that young Jack is played by the son of Sean Johnston. And so that way Shay Johnston. And so that chemistry and that believability just feels there. What do you think? What do you think, Micah, about that?
Yeah, everything with Jack this episode was really well done. I wonder if they had this idea all along to write this in eventually. I mean, it is kind of late 13 seasons in, but still, really, really well done. All the flashbacks were really good. So
yeah, I mean, it is kind of shocking when he gets so mad at little Luke, for grabs that hat box and storms off him. That's such untypical behavior for him that it was kind of surprising.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just thought I teared up. I thought everything really worked, and I thought the acting was very strong. And I don't know. What do you think, Jess?
Yeah, I would say, like, for me, the Jack storyline was the strongest part of this episode. Yeah. Although I do remember, I feel like when I first saw this season, I did feel like it came a little out of left field because I don't think we've ever heard any mention, like, of his sister.
Yeah, that's fair.
For 13 seasons. But I mean, they did kind of explain it, like, Amy made a comment, you don't even talk about it with us or whatever. So we kind of were able to explain that. But yeah, I definitely felt it was like a very, very touching and emotional storyline. And how it connected with, like, Georgie wanting to help with the hay, and why he was so, like, against it as well. And
this is directed by Megan Follows, who of course has played Lily on the show in the past, and so that's kind of interesting. But I think it was such a brilliant choice to have Shay play, I mean, the actual son of Sean Johnston play young Jack. It made it feel all the more immersive. It really worked. And you have basically Caleb and Ty helping with the bailing, and so Georgie offers to help, but Jack is hesitant about that. It seems a little hard to believe, again, that this wouldn't have come up much sooner, because this is a yearly activity that has to be done. It's not like it's something new. And I didn't really understand exactly what it was that, so June gets her foot caught, and she's just banged around too much and that kills her?
Yeah, I'm wondering, I mean, maybe if there was like a rock or something that she hit her head on while she was being like drug around. They didn't really show anything like that, but that would have been like my theory. And it just caused some sort of internal bleeding.
Yeah. The one child casting that like I said, normally the child casting is impeccable on this show, but I have to say I'm not loving the new Katie.
Yeah,
I like the other one better.
Oh, there was another one?
Yeah, there was another one.
It's been a really long time since I've watched
And there's more to come.
Oh, there are? Okay.
Yes.
That's good to know. But basically she's having a struggle with Luke. She gets upset about Luke leaving his toothbrush, and she's just kind of rude. And it kind of makes sense. I remember when my cousin came to live with us when I was in middle school, and it was definitely hard for me to have him. Like, I probably could have been kinder, but I was in middle school, so what am I gonna do? I was that age. It's tough to share your space with somebody new, and so I can understand why she's struggling with that.
Yeah,
I
think that's very understandable.
And she says, I have to live in the nursery, and he gets Georgie's old room in the attic, and so you can see why she would be kind of upset. We also have Jade entering a roping competition, and she has this horse Ringo that she buys, but then gets really upset in the box. And Mike, what do you think about this part of the story with Jade?
Yeah, I just feel bad for Jade. I just feel like she has such bad luck. Literally, like last season, like she fell and got a concussion, and now her horse won't rope. I do feel bad for her. And also, I don't know, I just feel like it's so sad that people do stuff to these horses, and most of the time they don't get away with it. I just do think it's sad.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a common thing in like the horse industry. Like, people do like lie to sell their horses and all that stuff. So if anything, this is a nice like little like public service announcement to anyone buying a horse. Make sure you do your pre-purchase exam, get it checked out by the vet, because you never know, like, if somebody's trying to sell you something that's got some hidden injury or something like that.
Yeah, it's amazing that they can even change the blood work and everything. They can, through, I guess this person sedates the horses, and that's it. They're able to hide these vertebrae problem that the horse has, but then they're able to do like the massage. But yeah, it's amazing that they can literally change. I mean, I guess like anything else, you can dope to hide things, but I don't know. It's just amazing how like they can even make them pass all the tests and everything like that. And like I said, we have Luke. He tells Jack, I won't go there ever again. And then Jack apologizes for losing his temper. But he's upset because he made a deal with June. If she fixed his horse, he'd take her to the Grand Ole Opry. And then she ends up having this accident. And it's, it's very, very painful. Caleb catches this Jamie in the act of drugging the horses. And so he basically says, you got to give the money back to Jade, and you got to stop doing what you're doing. What did you think, Jess, about Lou and Mitch in this episode?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I was annoyed. And honestly, like, Lou's character has annoyed me for a while, and I just feel like it's the way they've written her as this like super like, well, before this she was like so hot and cold all the time. And then now they're just acting like children. I'm like, come on, be adults. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
our actions are speaking louder than our words, and he's like sneaking in. And I mean, it just seemed ridiculous when everybody in the family knows that they're like
Right.
dating. She literally broke up his wedding. I mean, it's not like some secret, or she was going to break up his wedding.
Right.
I mean, it is pretty racy for a show like Heartland, though, to have
Yeah.
him sneaking in like that at night.
I did think that too. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So then we have the whole scene with them on the bailing thing, and Jack takes over the driving for Georgie. He says end of discussion. And you see the whole scene with young Jack getting the notice about June. And so yeah, it's tough. And then old Jack says the reason June died was my fault. And that's kind of where we leave the episode. But we also have Mitch saying to Lou, we should move in together. And I think the problem with all of Lou's relationships is they don't allow them to sort of grow organically. Like we have only seen, I think, Mitch and Lou go on one date, and it didn't go well when they first met each other. And it was the same way with Peter. They were fighting and fighting, and we never really got to see sort of their relationship grow. All of a sudden, they're married and still fighting and fighting, fighting. I wish that we got, they give all of the positive relationships to Amy, and it would be nice if we got a relationship with her that started with like a meet cute, and then they got to know each other and went on some dates and then became more serious, and then, just went through that process, as opposed to like always being this kind of will they, won't they, never really dating, and then all of a sudden they're basically getting married.
Well, I think in the books, I believe Lou actually ends up with Scott.
See, that makes the most sense. And I don't understand. I even asked Michelle Morgan why they did that, why they made that choice early on to not have her be with Scott. I don't understand why. She said she didn't know. So
yeah, I feel like I remember being really mad about that. I'm like, she's supposed to be with Scott.
Yeah. I don't know, Micah, what do you think about that?
I don't know. I just think it's still weird to me how Mitch literally called off his wedding for Lou. Now they're like moving in together. It just weirds me out. They did that Girls So Dirty last season. And yeah, I don't know. It feels like a little bit late in the game for like Lou and Mitch at this point. Like how many seasons have they been on and off? Like
it's been a while.
Like three seasons at this point. I mean, I do think they still have good chemistry, so that's not the problem. But yeah, I don't know. I hope there's some good progress, like with them,
I guess my point is that they were never really on. Like they've been on and off, but mostly off. Like they barely dated, and I don't know. It's just a weird way they keep doing these relationships. But Katie says that she knows Mitch is Lou's boyfriend, is her mom's boyfriend. They're busted, which is funny.
Because of all the kissy emojis.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But Katie asked Georgie for a riding lesson. And so that should be fun. That'd be cute with the sisters riding together. And then of course we see Amy and Jade winning at the roping, because Amy is just the best at everything with horses.
Of course.
Whatever the
doesn't even need to practice. She can just go in there and win it. It's cool.
Yeah, that's right. But I actually really liked this episode. I thought it was very moving. The whole young Jack really worked for me. So I'm gonna give this a pretty high score. I'm gonna give it an 8.5. I really thought it was strong. Yeah, what do you think, Jess?
I didn't like it as much as you. I really liked the Jack stuff,
Yeah.
but I didn't really care as much for the horse storyline or Lou and Mitch. So I gave it a 6 because I still thought it was a solid episode. Just didn't love like all of the storylines.
Yeah. What do you think, Micah?
I'm gonna give it an 8. The Jack stuff like really carried it for me. So
Yeah. It does what the show does so well as far as emotion and family. And I think that also I really appreciate that this show has cowboys, a traditionally masculine figure, that have emotional scenes and that they don't go the sort of hyper masculinity kind of route for their characters. These are fully fleshed out. I mean, by 13 seasons she should be, but even from the beginning, I appreciate that the male characters are aside from maybe Tim. Tim's the only one that's kind of the misogynist of the group, I guess. But he even has his moments. But I just really like the way they write the male characters for this show, especially the fact that they're cowboys, which would be an archetypical kind of macho type of a role. So anyway, when you have stories like this, and I think Sean Johnson is a really good actor.
Oh, yeah.
And it was fun to see his son in this. So there we go. We did it. All 3 episodes. So thank you so much to both of you for coming on. It was so fun to hear your perspective. I hope that you both come on for future episodes. And Jess, where can people find you online?
You can find me at Jess BSW blog on Instagram and Twitter.
Great. And Micah, what about you?
People can find me at Jess and Micah on Instagram and Twitter.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast, Hallmarkies Pod, Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave us your ratings and reviews, 5 stars. It really helps us a lot. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give the episode a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group, which is a lot of fun, and our merch store, which has Heartland inspired merch. So be sure to check that out. And thanks so much to both of you. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.